Good morning, first grade friends. I'm Conductor Joe. I'm going to read you a very special book today, one of my all-time favorites, The Polar Express. And I have some friends right here who are going to listen to the story. Are you guys ready? Let's read The Polar Express together. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. A sound a friend had told me I'd never hear the ringing of bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though, not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. How exciting is that, friends? It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the door of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and my robe. I tiptoed down the stairs and out the door. All aboard! The conductor called out. I ran up to him. Well, he said, are you coming? Where? I asked. Why, to the North Pole, of course, was his answer. This is the Polar Express. I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. Oh, how exciting, friends. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank yummy hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Soon, there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through dark, cold forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon, but the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills. The hills turned into snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice. The great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. We looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. There, the conductor said, is the North Pole. The North Pole, it was a huge city, standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy is made. At first, we saw no elves. They are gathering at the center of the city, the conductor told us. This is where Santa Claus will give out the first gift of Christmas. Who receives the first gift? We all asked. The conductor answered, he will choose one of you. Oh boy, oh boy. Look, shouted one of the children, the elves. Outside, we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped and the conductor let us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were so excited, they pranced and paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound, like nothing I'd ever heard before. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly, "Yay, it's Santa!" He marched over to us, pointing to me. And he said, "Let this fellow right here have the first gift." He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas, little boy?" I knew that I could have any gift I could ever imagine for Christmas. But the one thing that I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked Santa, he smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf stood up and gave it to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him and called out, "The first gift of Christmas." Boy. A clock struck midnight. As the elves roared their approval, Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my robe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed high into the sky. Santa circled once above us and then disappeared into the cold, dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked me to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt, there was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose that bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What? What?" I yelled. He cupped his hands together around his mouth and yelled, "Merry Christmas!" The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. Now, on Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. And guess what? It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell, and there was a note with it. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it must be broken." When I had shaken the bell, my parents did not hear the wonderful, beautiful sound. You see, at one time, most of my friends could hear the magic of the bell. But as years passed, it fell deathly silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet, beautiful sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe. First grade friends, I hope you enjoyed the story of the Polar Express. Little friends here, I hope you enjoyed it as well. What a beautiful, sweet sound.